So, welcome everybody on YouTube, and we're going to be talking today to Rebecca Day, lover, who's our HR specialist for Salonpreneur. And in the spring edition, Rebecca has written all about the joys of dealing with challenging conversations, which I know as a salon owner, I think even in just life in general, challenging conversations are challenging. But when you're a salon owner and you've got a team member that's not performing or is got behaviours that are not really what you want in your business, those challenging conversations can be a lot. So anyway, welcome Rebecca, and thank you for joining us today.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on.
That's okay. And it is, I love your column because it always it takes me back to my salon owner days, and some of those really cringe moments that I've had, because it is. And you deal with this and hold salon owners' hands on a regular basis of helping them get through, when it hasn't gone to plan. Because that's generally when we have a challenging conversation, isn't it?
There's usually two instances. So instance one, where somebody's absolutely kicked the can down the road.
Yeah.
And then there's a straw that's broken the camel's back.
Yeah.
And then something that could have been nipped in the bud months and months and months ago has just grown a life of its own. The second instance, because somebody doesn't like having those conversations, they blurt them out without having prepared properly, and then they find themselves in a situation that just escalates.
Yeah, and tempers are flared.
Tempers are flared, people cry, people shout, people get defensive.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? And I think I know I've removed a few people from my business over the years, and I was always very fortunate that I had I used to use ACAS, or I used to use I had like a HR kind of thing with my insurance. So I could always get legal advice before I did anything. And I think it's so vital, isn't it? And whether you use somebody like you who's a HR specialist, and you have on a retainer with your business, it's just there whenever you need them. But or you use ACAS, because they're always a very, very good place to go. But it's such a difficult thing. And I think that whole procrastination, and I know I was guilty of it, because you just sort of hope that things are going to change. And that by osmosis of you demonstrating how things should be done, because that's what I used to do quite a lot. Was initially, I did get better at it over the years, but initially the first few times I had staff, you just sort of hope that they learn by experience and by watching and that osmosis thing. And when that doesn't happen, it's quite a shock to your system sometimes.
It does. And then, the majority of people do. And it's always sad, isn't it? Because we spend 80% of our time on 20% of the people who are not getting it right. But I think, yes, in terms of legal advice, yes. But actually, it's actually a skill. And a learned skill in sort of dealing with challenging conversations. I actually was taught by ACAS. So obviously ACAS are great mediators. So I'm an ACAS qualified mediator.
Oh, are you? I didn't know that.
And some of the skills that you use in mediation are the same as sort of you would use in counselling. And I'm not for 1 minute suggesting I'm qualified as a counsellor. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But it's an actual learned skill in order to sort of remove emotion from a situation, and move the conversation on when it's got stuck. So, my message to everybody is you can learn how to do it. You may never feel comfortable. And let's face it, we like people. So who wants to have difficult conversations? But you will have the confidence to deal with them.
Absolutely. Do you know, and it's funny you saying that, it's just, I was listening this morning to an interview on the radio, and they were interviewing Fern Cotton, and she was talking about her book Likeable, and about how we generally as humanity, we just want to be liked.
Yes.
And I think probably that plays into this an awful lot, doesn't it? Because you want your employees to like you, and you don't want to be the big nasty boss that's going to pull the rug out from under their feet. And I think that likability thing, and it is, especially in this industry, we want all of our clients to like us. We want them to like what we do, and we want our staff to like us. And then when we're going to do something that's going to unsettle that, it just makes us question our niceness. because we have to be nice all day, every day as part of what we do. We
Absolutely.
have no choice but to be nice and have a smile on our face.
And that's magnified as well by
Yeah,
the environment, because it's not particularly hierarchical. You're all sort of,
no,
at, desks next to each other. You're in the
yeah,
salon environment. It's not like you're working in an office and, you have to deal with that person perhaps once a week, once a month.
yeah,
It is an environment where day in, day out, you're with
yeah,
your team.
yeah,
And it's really difficult having that line between being a nice boss and being somebody that's kind of almost overstepping the boundaries into becoming a friend as well. And
yeah,
and that's something I've often seen, both
yeah,
with sort of people promoted from within a team or a new manager who's recruited a team who want them to like them. So it's
yeah,
very, very difficult to get
yeah.
that balance right.
Yeah, and I think as well is that, you say that it's because we do work in such close quarters. Generally, most salons are a big open area with several small rooms that we go and go and work in on our own. Or if you're in a hair salon, obviously you're just in a big
Yes.
open space, which I think that kind of dilutes things a little bit, doesn't it? And you maybe so you kind of let things go. But I know like the dynamics of the team can shift so massively
Absolutely.
when something isn't right and everybody can see it isn't right. And if you then aren't acting as the leader, then you get complaints from the other team members that then you've got more challenging conversations to deal with.
Yeah.
And it is the escalation of it is just so horrible.
It completely is. And in this month's edition,
Yeah,
you'll see I kind of talk about preparing, you
yeah,
know, prepare, prepare, prepare. Think about the last time you had a difficult conversation with that person, how they come across, and
yeah,
prepare your opening words. If you prepare that and you've got your opening words, you'll usually find that everything else follows.
yeah,
And then think about, what will I do? What will I say if they cry? What will I say if they shout at me? And then
yeah,
there's some tricks that I give you in terms of neutralizing emotion with
yeah,
sort of very neutral words in order to sort of take the emotion out and the heat out, but also get that person to think about what the future looks like.
yes,
So that is, my big mantra, nip it in the bud and prepare.
yeah. I mean, I know one example that springs to my mind is a member of staff that I'd recruited, and I'd recruited two at the same time because I literally couldn't decide between them. So I gave them both reduced hours from what I'd been looking for a one person. And the one who I thought was going to excel and be amazing turned out really not to be. And it was it was a really difficult time. And I sort of, well, I thought I was stepping in and saying different things at different points. And my sort of assistant managery person who worked with me, she was, also trying to sort of guide and point in the right direction. But this particular person believed that, when you have a younger person who believes that they know how everything operates. And we were in that
Oh, you've
kind
met
of,
my son. You've met my son.
yes, yes, probably. And because it is, isn't it? There's a whole thing of like, that when
Yeah.
before the age of 25, you kind of think you know it all, but you don't
Yeah.
really. And we know that, neurologically, that's what's happening. And we were in that kind of place, and there was no, so it didn't matter what I did. So I started doing the preparedness, and I started because I had been there before. So I was making notes and saying, I've done this and I've said that and whatever. And then this one day, I probably did reprimand because I walked into my treatment room and there was oil all over the floor. And that's not acceptable. It's a health and safety
Yeah.
risk.
Yeah.
And plus, a client had walked through it because there was like footprints going with the. I mean, it was a really dangerous situation for a client to walk into. So I cleared it up, and I did my treatment, and then afterwards I said, we need to have a conversation. And oh dear, and it flared massively. She was quite. I mean, obviously I'm quite small, only 5'1". She was about 5'8". And I was sat in my office, and she came in and she literally started shouting at me and towered over me. And I couldn't get out of my room. She literally like pinned me into the room. It was
God, yeah,
like,
that's an extreme situation. Yeah.
honestly, it really was. From going from like, we need to have a conversation because, there was smile on the floor, and she denied it was her, and it literally, I won't go into all of it because it escalated very rapidly. And I was due to leave to go to my friend's wedding, and then I was going off to see universities with my daughter for the next few days, and so it was like the timing of it was horrendous, and screaming at me, swearing. Oh, we had clients in the salon. It was just like, this is just really not a good situation. And just trying to do, because you can go from thinking you're doing okay, because I had kind of learned before about being prepared and doing the thing and saying the right words. And that just went ballistic. It's the only time I ever had anyone get angry at me. And I hadn't even sacked her at that point. I'd only just said, like, there was a problem here. Can we look at this? Yeah. So I don't know how you deal with like in the end, I just said to her, I think you need to leave, and I think you should go home
Yeah.
because
I
this
think
is not.
that's the only thing
Yeah.
you could have done in that
I
circumstance.
don't know what
Yeah.
else I could do. And like fortunately, it was a really good regular client. And I went, after she'd gone, I went back down, and the client was like, goodness me, did she just really swear at you like that? I was like, yeah. I mean, it was quite a difficult situation. And in the end, I mean, yeah, I mean, there was just so many breaches of conduct.
Yeah.
It was like, no, this is not happening.
Yeah.
And sadly, yes, she had to go. But that whole lesson was because I don't know what I could have done differently. And that is an extreme. And
That is an extreme.
let's hope not everybody goes through
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. And in the article, I also talk about what happens if that happens,
Yeah,
because you can be prepared, you can do
yeah,
everything, but you can't always legislate
no.
the human behavior.
No, and
Um,
that one was extreme. And
yeah.
and I think as well is that I knew we were probably heading to that. I didn't think that we'd head to that level of
Mm,
emotion and anger. I knew we were heading to a place where she probably wasn't going to be remaining in my employment. So I was documenting it. But that day I had no idea that that was going to happen.
yeah,
But I think, but having been prepared and knowing and having documented where I was at with the situation,
absolutely. Yeah.
then gave me all the ammunition I needed to be able to have a challenging conversation, yeah, that by email, because in the end I said, you're not returning to the premises, you're not coming back, I'm not going to be threatened like that.
No.
But it was so that's probably my most extreme one. I have several others.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I
I've
know,
been,
but it's difficult,
yes,
isn't it?
it is so difficult. And I think, when I speak to salon owners, without doubt, that is the worst part of their job,
Yeah,
is they say, dealing sometimes with those challenging situations and issues.
yeah,
So I do feel for people, I mean, I've been a leader myself, and I've had big teams, and invariably from time to time, I have to say I've had a fabulous team over the years.
yeah,
Invariably from time to time, you do have people that challenge you, and you have to sort of work with to modify their behavior.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So what would say, I mean, obviously I have had other people that have just been sad when they've realized that there's a problem, and they
yeah,
do cry. And I think that's and I think again, I'd like with her in, and I don't know, because obviously you work across, although you tend to be within the beauty sector,
yes,
you work across a lot of retail
yeah.
companies as well. So do you feel that there's a difference between how like the retailers deal with stuff like this and how the salon owners deal with it? Because I do feel we've got so much more of that human side and the touch side and all of that kind of being nice to people. I mean, obviously
Yeah.
retailers have to be nice to people, but I think that we
Yes,
have like an energetic connection to our clients perhaps, or to our staff, that
yes.
maybe is
I,
different.
I, I think that's it. I think, if ordinarily, if you're in retail, you're in any other industry, it's a little bit more removed. Um, but as I said before, when you're in a salon, it's a totally different
Yeah,
environment, and you've got to be cognizant of the person you're dealing with, the clients, and the other team members, because there's no escaping them. It's all in the same
no, it's all
same building. And I do think salon people, beauty industry, very, very empathetic. And
Mm.
I think, and I'm not saying for a minute that any of my other clients are not, or it differs. I just think there's that extra complexity because of the environment that
Yeah,
that we work in. It is fairly informal environment as well, isn't it?
yeah, it is
But it's
very,
not
very much so.
corporate. So it's
Yeah,
very different in corporate
yeah, because I do
organizations.
find it's like with my sister's in corporate, and when I see how, and she has to do a lot of disciplinaries and stuff. She's at like senior management level, so she does a lot of disciplinaries and a lot of grievances, and she's just so black and white about it. And I always just look at her and like, how can you be that unemotional about it? But because of that corporate environment, you have got, like, I don't know, I suppose you've got the protection of the corporate nature of the business, whereas for salon owners, most often they're the owner of the business, the leader of the team, and all of everything falls on their shoulders, doesn't it? I suppose is maybe why there's
Yeah, and
different.
that's really true because in corporate you've got a function for this, you've got a function for that, a department
Yeah,
for this, and we don't have that.
no,
And you tend to have much more, it's much more process driven,
yeah,
whereas it's not like that in your own business. And
no,
I don't know if you've noticed, Sue, but sort of all of my features have sort of built
yeah,
on each other. So we talk about, contracts, we talk about probationary periods, and
yeah,
now we're talking about sort of difficult conversations. And it
yeah,
all goes back to that very first step about setting standards in, letting somebody know in the contract, in the policies and procedures,
yeah,
what your values are, what the client experience you're striving for is, what
yeah,
you're expecting from them to deliver that.
yeah,
You start with that, you start with regular check-in meetings, review meetings.
yeah,
You're gonna have exactly what you said before about the lady that, really overstepped the mark to say it
yeah, just a little bit.
mildly. You had the process in place already.
Yeah,
And so you had the comfort of knowing that you were doing things the right way.
yeah,
And I think again, that's what I would urge salon owners to do. Get those basics in place,
yeah,
um, nip problems in the bud, set standards, regular viewings, and that will minimize your
yeah,
chances of getting there. It won't eradicate them because
no,
there's now as odd as folk, as they say, but
absolutely.
it will help
Yeah,
minimize. And you've got the comfort of knowing you followed due process.
yeah,
And tribunals, and I hate always sort of thinking about what would happen if you went to tribunal, but I actually think it's a good practice, rather than, being a devil's advocate, you always have to think about, am I being reasonable? Would another employer act in this way? What due process have I followed? What due diligence have I carried out? And have I done this in the
yeah.
right way?
And I think as well, like you're saying, like, if you have regular performance reviews, if you can see the starts of something, you do have the opportunity to say, actually, we just need to do some more training on this area or whatever, can't you? And you can introduce it in a much more positive way than then having to wield the stick,
Yeah.
because you generally, and I mean, I know, like, a lot of the times when I've ended up in situations when with team members, a lot of it's because I've not been there and I've been on holiday, or I've had my eye off the ball because I've been busy doing something else,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
I've just procrastinated and gone, oh, I don't know if I really want to deal with that today. And I think there's an awful lot as leaders that we can sometimes shy away from it, and and I think maybe because we aren't as salon owners, generally we haven't been given the tools to know how to deal with it. Like, so much within everything, nearly everything we write about in the magazine is because as beauty therapists, hairdressers, whatever sector you're in, you haven't been given the tools to manage a
Yeah,
team.
yeah.
And I think, if when you start a business, we just need a Rebecca in our lives to actually teach us what we need to do, or just give us those pointers of, like, you need to have this in place, this in place, this in place. And it's everything we do in the magazine, we've done in the magazine, is about we're plugging the gaps.
Yeah.
Everything's about plugging the gaps. And having somebody like you on hand is one of, you're one of the biggest plug gappers that can help a salon owner just try and get their ducks in a row, because we don't
Absolutely.
know. And until you land a member of staff that doesn't comply and hasn't listened to what you think you've told them, then you don't know what they're going to do, and you don't know how you're going to react. And I think
Absolutely. The other thing to always reflect on is this skill or is this will?
Yeah,
Because I think that's a big one.
yeah.
If
Because I
somebody,
think you covered a lot of that in your
yeah,
behaviours one, didn't you?
yeah. I mean, because if somebody's struggling, are they struggling?
Mm.
Is it they don't know what to do, or that they just don't want to do it? And
Yeah,
that's your job as a salon owner to kind of figure that out.
yeah.
Will is much harder than addressing skill.
Yeah, definitely. I just think we just really, really need to, as an industry, we really need to start understanding if we're going to have a team around us. And I think even now, I saw something yesterday talking that's clearly in disguised employment. They're working, they pay 50% commission. They've got no control over their products, no control over what hours they work. I mean, it's like completely disguised employment. But then she's had all these people go, well, you're in disguised employment. You need to go back and say. So it kind of goes both ways, isn't it? And I think, that
Yeah,
model of business is so prevalent now that
absolutely.
the difficult conversations don't necessarily always go from the employer to the employee. They go from somebody in, whether they're employed or disguised employed or whatever. If you've got to go into the place you work and speak to the person that owns
Yeah.
it, that can be really daunting because you can lose everything.
Absolutely, and I think you've landed on a key point there, and something that we've not really talked about before, and it
Mm,
does go both ways. Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. So, but this sort of those kind of skills of preparing what you're going to say, think about what happens if that person gets shouts at you, gets defensive.
yeah,
Think about how you'll deal with that. So you've got that as your backup plan.
yeah,
Also holds true for sort of
yeah.
team members as well. And I always think salon owners are developing the next generation of the industry. So let's sort
Absolutely.
of draw a line in the sand. Let's sort of, you know, be really proud of ourselves for, developing great people skills and
Yeah,
developing great leaders for the next
yeah,
generation as well.
yeah. Because I think as well is that, we are an industry that can communicate because
Yeah,
we have to communicate with our clients
absolutely.
on a daily basis or an hourly basis. And we have to have open lines of communication and understand, open questions and closed questions and body language and all that kind of stuff. And we are trained to do that bit.
Absolutely.
So,
It's
but
no
yeah,
different.
no,
It's
it is
no
no different.
different.
But I suppose there's that whole, if you're the employer, you know that this could potentially end in you losing an employee if it doesn't go well. And as the employee, you could end up losing your job if you raise a
Yeah.
concern. And so like a knife edge of it. Whereas, if we could just take maybe some of the communication skills that we use with our clients, we've all had clients. I've had so many clients over the years that, you're doing a treatment on. I don't know that you get this much in hair, but I'm sure it probably does happen in hair as well. But definitely as a beauty therapist and as a nail tech, you're sitting as a nail tech, particularly sitting holding someone's hand for an hour and a half sometimes. And that emotional, that can be so emotionally charged. And if you happen to, respond to a question or, you start a conversation that is a trigger for a client, you don't always know what they're going through that day, do you? And I've had many a client, or they've come in and they're trying to hold it together, but their mum's just died, or
Mm,
their
mm.
son is just gone off to university for the first time. And those, oh my dear, the days when we've had clients just sobbing, but
Yeah.
we can deal with it in that circumstance, and we know what to do in that circumstance. So is it just a case of we need to apply that
A
knowledge?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think active listening,
Mm,
reading somebody's body language, asking probing questions,
yeah,
tell me why you did that, or help
yeah,
me understand. We're used to asking those questions,
yeah,
be it whether you're a beauty therapist, whether you're a hairdresser, how do you want, that color to make you feel? What are you
yeah,
looking for? What's your need for today? We're used to saying that,
yeah,
I started my career on the shop floor. Between A levels and uni, worked for the Estee Lauder Group on the counters, and
yeah,
that taught me firsthand really great people
Yeah,
skills that have
yeah.
stayed with me for my whole of my career.
It's nothing. Maybe it's just, and it's. I think the problem is when it's your business, you are so emotionally attached to it
Yeah.
that it makes, even though you know how to have all those conversations, it puts a different spin on it, doesn't it? And
Yes.
how what the outcome of it will be. You know, we know with the client, the outcome is going to be that they go away feeling uplifted, or they're going to go away feeling, you know, that even if they have been upset, that generally that they're going to go away feeling better than they arrived,
Yes.
because they've had time to let
Yeah.
that out and do all of that stuff. But I think, isn't it, like for sort of for team members and bosses and stuff, there's just so much baggage around it, isn't there? And especially if you've got something that has been building for 3 to 6 months or so, because there's only so long that you can go for, isn't there?
Absolutely. And also when you're in a corporate environment, things like, yes, obviously hugely important, profitability, sales, what have you. But when you're a salon owner, it's truly personal, because
Yeah,
that's your baby, that's your livelihood.
yeah,
That's what puts food in your family's mouths.
yeah, yeah,
And it is very, very emotive. So I think
yeah,
it's about also self-checking yourself
yeah,
and thinking, right, okay, how am I going to deal with this? Let me try and take the emotion out of the
yeah,
situation. What do
yeah,
I want to get out of it? What do I need to do? What will I do if I get cross? And it's also about, thinking, well, I'm going to say, look, I'm planning to say, let's take a minute. I want to collect my thoughts. I suggest you do too. And
yeah,
having those little tricks up your sleeve to deal with your
yeah,
own emotion as well as
yeah.
someone else's.
That's it. And I think as well as like one of the things that I learned when I worked in personnel in the health service was that, having notes and stuff. And so giving people the opportunity, if you're going to have a meeting, let
Yeah.
them write down all of their notes beforehand too. And
Exactly, exactly. And I always say to anybody, if they're worrying because they haven't got it all in their head, is to say to someone, look, this is really important. So I did take the opportunity of jotting down some notes.
yeah,
So because this is really important, I want a good outcome for both of us. So
yeah,
I'm going to be referring
yeah.
to my
Just be
notes.
clear, isn't it? Just be
Yeah,
clear.
and then, checking in. Thank you. Let me just give me a minute. I just want to check that I've asked all the questions that I
Yeah,
wanted to, so I understand the situation.
yeah,
Perfectly fine. You're not an actor. You don't need to deliver this huge soliloquy,
yeah,
and yeah, it's your meeting. So you should need to take the time to modify your own behavior, and emotions, as well as helping the other person cope and
yeah.
managing the situation.
Wonderful. And I think so. So the key message then is just be prepared, and don't be concerned about having notes, and just and give, and also give, maybe giving that person the opportunity, that they've got notice, that they can understand that they're going to
Yeah,
be having a chat with you, so they've got an opportunity to raise their concerns too.
absolutely. Two-way,
Yeah,
two-way communication is
yeah,
key.
wonderful. Well, we'll leave it there, and thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It's been
And
great as always.
I know I do. I love all these little conversations. I think there's always like more little nuggets and stuff that come out. So
Absolutely.
thank you so much for coming on. And yeah, I'll see you soon.
See you soon.